Ahal Kadosh, Erev Tov, Masechet, Taanit, Tavdaled, Amud Bet. Okay, 3 lines from the top. Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda says, Ha'over lifnei ateva. Yeah, somebody that is going to be Shaliach Tzibur in front of the Teva. Yom Tov Aharon Shel Chag. On the last day of Chag, Acharon Maskid, Adishon Maskid. The last one is going to say Mashav Ruach Me'Geshet. The first one is not going to say Mashav Ruach Me'Geshet. Yom Tov Arishon Shel Pesach. On the first day of Pesach, Harishon Maskid, Acharon Maskid. The first one is going to mention Mashav Ruach Me'Geshet. The last one is not going to mention Mashav Ruach U'Morid Geshem. Urminu, we have a contradiction. What's a contradiction? There's a Mishnah. Where is this Mishnah? The Mishnah is over here. The Mishnah says, yeah, Ad matai shoalim geshamim. Until when are we going to ask for rain? Now pay attention that it says shoalim. Does not say maskirim. Shoalim. Shoalim usually means task, which means v'ten talumatar. Within talumatar livracha. So says the Gemara. It's a Mishnah. It's a machloket. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says ad she'avor Pesach. What does it mean she'avor Pesach? It means the Pesach finishes. So therefore, during Chol HaMoed, you still will say v'ten talumatar livracha. Rabbi Meir says, what are you talking about? Not only until then. Ad she'avor Nisan, until the end of the month. Mamash, you finish Pesach, you have the rest of the month. Again, v'ten talumatar livracha. So now the contradiction is, in our Mishnah, he only said until Pesach. Now in the next Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda and the same Rabbi Judah is saying until later on, until even Chol HaMoed. Or according to Rabbi Meir, it's mamash even until the end, and the Nisan. So Amar Rav Chasta, says Rav Chasta, La Kashya. It's not a question. Why is it not a question? Kan lishon, kan laskid. One of them is to mention it. And one of them is to ask for it. What does that mean? Mishal Shail Va'azil, you're going to go and you're going to ask the entire time, right? And you're going to continue asking. When it talks about mentioning it, Laskir, the Yom Tov Rishon Pasik, on the first day of Yom Tov of Pesach, you're going to stop. So you're going to start mentioning it, okay? Until here we're clear, yeah? Now, says Gemara, Amar Ula comes and he says, Had Rav Chasta kashya. These words of Rav Chasta is a question. Kachometz lashinayim v'ke'ashal na'enayim. It's like vinegar to your teeth and like smoke to your eyes. What does that mean? Terrible answer. Yeah, but he said it in a very nice way, obviously. Yeah, but he said, right? What's this? He says, Uma bimkom sheno shoel maskid b'makom sheshoel. We already explained what the Kal V'chomer was, which makes 100% sense. On the day of Shemini Atzeret, what do you do?
Unknown caller.
Yeah, you heard. What do you do on Shemini Atzeret? What do you do? What do you say on Shemini Atzeret? No, you don't ask. You're maskir. You mention. What do you mention? Do you ask? No. You don't say until later. So he comes and he says, 1 second. If in a place where you're maskid, you don't ask, kal vachomer, if you ask, you're going to be maskid. So therefore he says, how could it be that on Pesach, you're going to stop mentioning, but you're going to continue asking? Doesn't make sense. He says this is like chometz, yalashinayim. Yeah, he says it's vinegar to the teeth and like smoke to the eyes. Doesn't make sense. Ela mar Ula, but rather Ula answers, Tareh Tanae Alibad Rabbi Yehuda. Yeah, what does that mean? There are two Tanaim Alibad. Tareh Tanae Alibad Rabbi Yehuda. It's very simple. Sometimes you have two students that listen to the rabbi, and they both think that they're quoting the rabbi, and they're quoting the rabbi wrongly. And since they're quoting the rabbi wrongly, what happens is you have two Tanaim Alibad Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah is going to say that you stop when on Pesach, and that's it. You don't do anything else. You stop asking and mentioning. And Rabbi Yehuda of the Mishnah later on, no, you're going to continue with asking, but not the mentioning. Right? That's the entire concept that we mentioned. That we said the Tana of right? Our Mishnah, he says that you stop them, both of them. And according to the Tana, the next Mishnah, he says you could ask until the end of Pesach, and Koshkin, you're allowed to mention it as well. Yeah, until you're allowed to mention it. Rav Yosef says, "My ad she'avor Pesach." What does it mean until it's going to pass Pesach? Yeah, he says like this. What does it mean ad she'avor Pesach? Ad she'avor shliach tzibur rishon hayored biyom tov rishon shel Pesach. Which means like this. We had two different shitot, correct? We had a contradiction. Our Mishnah, contradiction. Rav Chasta came and he tried to answer the contradiction. How did he come to answer the contradiction? He wanted to say, no, one of them is lishol and laskid. You could continue asking all that you want, but you stop mentioning early. Says Abaye, Ula, sorry. It doesn't make sense. What does it mean? Is that that's opposite? So Ula comes and he answers, no. They're two different Tanaim. Since there's two different Tanaim, two different halachot. Rav Yosef comes and he gives another answer. Rav Yosef comes and he answers, what does it mean ad she'avor Pesach? Remember, the Mishnah on Hei Amud Aleph said, ad she'avor Pesach. Ad matai sho'alin, ad she'avor Pesach. What does that mean? Ad she'avor shliach tzibur yured biyom tov rishon shel Pesach. It means that when the shliach tzibur comes on the first day of Pesach, that's what it means. You're going to say sho'alin. So the Gemara is going to ask Elmaleh Abaye, she'ela biyom tov mika? He says what? Now there's she'ela? There's no she'ela on Yom Tov. When was the last time on Yom Tov you come and you say v'ten talmata livracha? On Yom Tov, it's tefillah of Yom Tov. If it's tefillah of Yom Tov, you don't have any v'ten talmata livracha. So what are you talking about there? Right? Ad she'avor Pesach means the Yom Tov Rishon shel Pesach. What does that mean? So Elmaleh, he says, yes, sho'el meturgeman. If you remember, we mentioned in the olden days, there used to be meturgeman. What was meturgeman? Somebody used to come up and he used to translate. He used to be the narrator, which means the big Rosh Yeshiva used to come and give over halachot, but he wasn't a good speaker. So he had somebody that used to come in front of him. He was a translator. He used to come and translate everything in order to say it nicely and to, to make it beautiful and to, No. This is not on tefillah, not on Kriyat Torah. It's in drasha. In the drasha. So no, nothing to do with Amidah. There is no Amidah, no Kriyat Torah. On Yom Tov, there used to be drashot. You understand? Which means that the rabbi used to come and give a drasha. Nowadays, right, they weigh up where to go to synagogue according to how long is the rabbi's speech. So the same thing, they had a rabbi's speech. Now the rabbi's speech, the rabbi himself, right, he didn't know how to speak very, very well. Right? Why? Because many times they were the big Rosh Yeshiva, so they had a meturgeman. Meturgeman was the one that used to listen to the shiur from the rabbi, right? And then he used to come and give it to everybody. So he was a powerful speaker, good performance during. So what happened was during that speech, the meturgeman used to come and ask for what? He would ask for rain. So ask the Gemara, meturgeman shoel davar she'eno tzarich letzibur. Doesn't make sense. Okay, inachanam. That means there's no tefillah, no kriyat Torah. It's in the middle of the drasha. In the middle of the drasha, you're going to say v'ten davar livrecha. Ribono shel olam. The meturgeman is going to start asking for something that we don't need. The meturgeman is here to translate the shiur. Now, even if he's going to ask for something, he's going to start asking for something that we don't need. We don't need rain now, right? It's already Pesach. We don't need rain. So if we don't need rain anymore, why in the world is he going to ask for rain? So answers the Gemara. You're right. We retract this last answer. Throw it out. Yeah, what does that mean? Machvarta. Machvarta really literally means it becomes white, right? Right, like chiver. But machvarta means it appears clear. That means we're retracting. Like Ula. Like Ula. What was Ula's answer? What was Ula's answer? Okay? So that was, so one more time. Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah and Hei Amud Aleph. Contradiction between them. Answer number one, Rav Chasta. Ula challenges Rav Chasta and Ula answers Tanei Alibad Rabbi Yehuda. Then answer number two, Rav Yosef. Abaye challenges Rav Yosef. And then he answers Abaye. And then again Abaye asks. And then again the answer, we go back to Ula. Capish? Okay. Rabba now is going to come and give another answer to answer up the contradiction between the Mishnah on Bet Amud Aleph and Hei Amud Aleph. Rabba says, "My ad she'avor Pesach." What does it mean until Pesach is going to pass by?
With the first three words.
Rabbi comes and he answers up the stira, the contradiction between Bet Amud Aleph and He Amud Aleph, and he says, "My ad she'avor Pesach." What does it mean ad she'avor Pesach? Ad she'avor zeman shechitat Pesach. We're not talking about Chag Pesach. We're talking about Korban Pesach. When was the Korban Pesach? On the 14th during the day. So therefore he comes and he says by Chatzot of the 14th. So when it says the Avor, it means it's already the time of Shchitat Pesach. So now Rabbi Yehuda says, we're going to ask in Shachrit of Erev Pesach, which the time is B'diavad until Chatzot, and in the Tfilat Mincha, which is after Chatzot, we stop asking for rain. So when it says Ad She'avor Pesach, it doesn't mean the Chag Pesach, because then you could understand that it's Chol HaMoed. Ad She'avor, the time of Shachrit, because the time of Shachrit, B'diavad, is until Hasot. Chatzot is the last time to say Shachrit. Obviously, it's B'diavad. It's the 4th hour. After the 4th hour, it's going to be until Chatzot, B'diavad. Obviously, force majeure, you understand? But until that time, on Erev Pesach, which is the time of the Korban Pesach. After that, you don't do it anymore. V'kitchilato ken sofo. Just like the beginning of the time of Sheila, so too is the end of the time of the Sheila. What does that mean? Matchilato maskir afal pi she'eno shoel. Right? He comes and he says, even though, just like at the beginning on Sukkot, you're going to mention kivurot keshamim and shmini atzeret, even though you're not asking for it. Because again, v'tentel matar. So to at the end, maskir afal pi she'eno shoel. How did you start on Sukkot? How did you start? On Shmini Atzeret, what did you start? Maskiri ve'eno shoel. You mentioned Mashiv Baruch Hu Geshem, but you didn't say V'tenet Donat Lecha until much later on. So to on Pesach, Selam Emshos. It's a b'diuk oto davar. Symmetric. What does that mean? On Pesach, when did you stop asking V'tenet Donat Lecha? On Shachrit of Erev Pesach. When do you finish saying Mashiv Baruch Hu Geshem, which is Maskirim? Only on Shachrit of Pesach in itself. So therefore, just like at the beginning was maskirin ve'enam shoalin, so too when you finish, it's maskirin ve'enam shoalin. Until here we're clear. Says the Gemara, Elmaleh Abaye. Abaye comes and he asks against Rabbi. Bishlema, it is good. Yeah, it is good. Shatchilato maskir, right? When we're talking about at the beginning of the time, you're going to be maskir gevurot kashamim, even though you don't ask. Why? Haskara nami ritzui she'elahi. Because if you remember, when you start mentioning, the mentioning is the beginning of the asking. Meaning, when you start mentioning Mashiva Ruach the Geshem, that is the beginning. You're starting off laying the seeds. So that way, when you're going to ask for it, you already were there. You already started something. But he says, Sofo, ma'iritzui she'ela ika. But at the end, what do you want to do exactly? Meaning, at the beginning, if you remember, why do we mention Sofo is at the end? Ela Sofo.
We don't have that.
Yes.
So says the Gemara one more time. Says the Gemara, you guys remember what is the reason why we mentioned Mashiva Ruach Muni the Geshem on Sukkot?
Well, only we mentioned no מבקשים בגלל גשמים שלא יבואו להם שהם הולכים הביתה בחזרה.
No, we don't want the rain. But we're mentioning Mashiva Ruach Muni the Geshem. Why are we mentioning it?
זה עונתו, זמנו.
Mention any time in the year.
We can mention any time in the year. Why on Sukkot?
Time of the rain.
ניסוך המים ועונתו. מים, ניסוך מים ועונתו.
סמוך לגשמים. No, there it says אין שואלים את הגשמים עד סמוך לגשמים. Gemara like this. We learned, and you guys remember it so beautifully, right? We learned that the entire purpose of, right, the entire purpose of mentioning Mashiva Ruach Muni Geshem was because we mentioned that B'chag nidonim al hamayim, which means that on Sukkot we're judged on the water. And since we're judged on the water, so therefore we're going to mention something. I'll read to you the lashons, that way it just rings a bell, as they say. That it says, since we went in and said, nidonim al hamayim, ve'aydi the Tana B'chag nidonim al hamayim, Tana me'matam eskin gvurot shmim. There, if you remember when it said, ve'aydi the Tani B'chag nidonim al hamayim, it says over here, since Nidonim alamayim, Shema Mina, Rashi says, Ba'inan laskid inyana demaya leretsuye alamayim. We're mentioning things on the water, inyana diyoma, leretsuye alamayim, to give us goodwill on the water, delaytu libracha, that they should come with a blessing. That was Rashi on Bet Amud Aleph. We learned Rashi, if you remember correctly, after I think 8 times, right? I don't know how many times we did the Gemara. So Rashi says, leretsuye al amayim. Another time, which also, right, they did mention, this was what David Perez mentioned also, was the Netilat Lulav. Netilat Lulav was leretsuye alamayim. So we mentioned, just like Netilat Lulav was leretsuye alamayim. So therefore, we come and we say that also we should mention leretsuye al hamayim. There was another reason brought down, and that was to do with nisuch hamayim, right? That nisuch hamayim, but all of them come on basis on Masechet Rosh Hashanah, because if you know that now on Chag Nidonim alamayim, and that's why our Mishnah is based upon that Mishnah. Now we have other remazim leretsuye alamayim, netilat lulav. You have nisuch hamayim. You have all these things leretsuye al hamayim. Leretsuye al hamayim means that I'm going to mention something of Mashiach Ruach. So therefore, when God comes and He's going to give us rain, we want Him to give us rain with goodwill, with biracha, with all the good in the world. That is the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing it. So now ask the Gemara, and Abaye comes and he asks against Rabbi, ma pitom. You know what pitom means? I don't understand what you're trying to do. You just told me that it had to be symmetric. What do you mean symmetric? Just like at the beginning, you first laskir velo lishol, right? Laskir, you mention a shiur, but you don't ask for rain. So to at the end, you're maskir v'ata lo shoel, but you stopped asking for rain when? When did you stop asking for rain?
יום טוב של פסח.
יום ראשון של פסח.
When did you stop asking for rain? Asking, the tenth al-matar. 14 when? In Shachrit, in Chatzot. Chatzot is when it finishes. Chazagu, just learned that. Korban Pesach. We just read it. I didn't say anything new. You guys said on Pesach. Yeah? It's not the first day of Pesach. Korban Pesach is Erev Pesach.
Yes, the 14th.
Not on Pesach, the 14th of Pesach. A big difference. Remember, the Korban was eaten at the nighttime. The nighttime, the Agadah is on the Korban Pesach. It's on the night of Pesach. What do you do the Agadah nighttime? Everything's on the night.
No, but you're right, because we don't ask on.
Exactly, we don't ask on the Pesach. So it's really... Well, yes, because it's Chatzot. Chatzot is when it starts the Korban Pesach. So Shachrit, B'diavad, you could do it until Chatzot.
No,
so you stop, yeah. According to the Shita, She'ela, you stop. She'ela, you stop. Maskir, you continue until the first day of Pesach. So one second.
When were they doing that?
One second. The Korban was done on Chatzot onwards, until the nighttime, until before the Shekiah. From Chatzot Hayom until nighttime, until before Shekiah. And then that's when they used to do the Korban. And in the nighttime, they used to come and they used to eat from the Korban Pesach. You had to eat it on that nighttime.
You had to do in between these two.
In between, obviously, yes, exactly. Okay, so now what happens is as follows. Says the Gemara, says Abaye, 1 second. What's your svara? That now all of a sudden you stop asking by Mincha time, by Chatzot time, and then you're going to stop mentioning it only on the first day of Pesach. Right? Okay, fine. He says, why? By Shemini Atzeret, I wanted leratzot alamayim. I wanted to bring goodwill on the water. I wanted beracha on the water. So what can you do? Your first maskir, even though you don't need to be shoel, right? And you're not going to shoel, because right now it's a siman klala. You're not going to ask now, right? You're only going to want it later on, right? So right now you're maskir leratzot alamayim. What's the svara fucha? On Pesach. Yeah, what's happening on Pesach? On Pesach, I stop asking Erev Pesach, but then I stop mentioning it on the first day of Pesach. Why? Leretsuye? For what? Like, what? If you already stop asking, stop mentioning. That's the question of Abaye. Amaleh Abaye says, Bishlema techilato. It's good at the beginning, maskir. Why? Haskara nami, mentioning also Ritsui she'elahi, is coming from the asking. Meaning, when you want to ask for something, you first start mentioning it, right? When somebody comes, right, when a child comes to Baba Haki and he tells him, listen, I want $1 million. Hey, yeah, Papa. want this, this, that. And he starts, by the way, I saw a nice car over there. It was a good price. And then afterwards, the next day, by the way, the cars, the prices are very, very high. But this car was actually not that expensive. And then the next day, until finally, Papa, can you buy me the car? Right? What do? You first open up. You understand? You first start, with it. And then afterwards, you have to oil it down. You're not going to jump the gun. If not, he's going to say, go to where. You understand? So what is it? Little by little. And he starts listening. At the beginning, for sure, he's going to say no. Second time, you know what? It actually sounds a little bit good. Third time, fourth time, he already bought his papa and he already got him everything.
That's the way it goes. Always get what they want.
100%.
Do what you do.
100%. He says, but, he's speaking from experience, But sofo. But what's sofo? Sofo is the end. What is the end? What's the shela? Which means like this. If you stopped asking the tental matali v'cha, what are you now mentioning it? Meaning, if you already stopped asking for it, you still have to tell them. Meaning, the second that he got from Papa, whatever you wanted, he's not going to butter him up anymore. Let his father go, to the old age home. What does he care now about his father? He already got what he wanted, and now that's it. You understand?
Of the 15th.
So 4 is the end, which is the shachrit of the 15th of Pesach. So he's saying, what is the ritzui she'ela? Ritzui she'ela is always before. Meaning, I want to butter you up. So what I'm going to tell you, listen, by the way, you should know, right? There's good opportunities for donations, and there's this. And finally, I'm going to come and I'm going to hit the nail on the head. David, we need $1 million. Can you give us $1 million? That's the way it works. You understand? That's how it starts. You start little by little, right? And then afterwards, you come and you go for the kill. But if I already went for the kill and I already asked you for the $1 million and you gave it to me, so now I have to tell you again. By the way, it was very good business opportunities, very good donations. I already went for that. I got everything. What do I need? What's the ritzui she'ela after the fact? That's the Gemara's asked. That's what the question was of Abaye. What does the Gemara answer? Ela machvarta kedeula. We go back again to Ula. What was Ula's answer? Tutraim aliva de Rabbi Yehuda.